Hey, what is up guys and girls? My name is Prashil and welcome back to my channel, the home of everything art and tech related. And in today's video, we are going to be having a look at my full review of the Samsung Galaxy S21 Plus. So as I promised in my first impressions video, I said that I would at least spend about a week or two with this S21 Plus and just give my full kind of in-depth review of the phone. I'm going to talk about, what I think of this phone in general, and we'll talk about the good, the bad, who I think this phone is, best suited for, and, whether or not it's worth the buy at this high price point. So let's get into the video. Before we get into the video, please remember to like and subscribe, guys, and help this poor kid learn some new vocabulary. Alright, so the first thing I want to talk about is the design itself. And as I stated previously in my impressions video, I really like the overall design of the S21 Plus. And particularly, I like the way they actually kind of molded the camera module, and it almost looks as if it kind of bleeds into the bezels itself. And I think that that's kind of a really cool design feature. And yeah, I think the actual colorway, which is Phantom Violet, by the way, is kind of one of the cooler colorways that you can pick up in the S21 lineup this year. And yeah, so with the actual design itself, I will have to say that it's quite distinct. I mean, just kind of looking at this phone from far, you can kind of tell, you can almost tell that it's a Samsung device. And I think in that sense, Samsung has done a pretty good job. Now, kind of when you get closer to this phone and you actually hold it in your hand, that's when you kind of realize that the back is actually not glass and that it's plastic. And to me, it's kind of the slippery plastic, which I'm not the biggest fan of, and kind of also reminds me of back in the old days, I think it was 2015, 2014, when Samsung released the S5, and it had that golf ball-like imprint on the back, which I thought was really quite interesting. And so I think that if Samsung is planning to kind of move ahead in this kind of a plasticky direction, I think they should definitely bring back the golf ball-like indents. I think it just gave the phone a bit of feel, and the S5 was probably one of my favorite phones back then. So I definitely do think that that's what Samsung should do. But yeah, you'd either love it or you'd either hate it. But I don't think it's the biggest deal breaker. Yeah, so I think it's important to note that you will notice that the back is not glass, but there are benefits and kind of downsides. On one hand, the phone doesn't feel as premium, and for something you're paying a hell of a lot of money for, you kind of want it to feel premium. It kind of takes away from that. And so I would have to say that on the one hand, yeah, it doesn't feel as good, but on the other, it is lighter, and it is kind of allowed Samsung to sell the phone off launch a little bit cheaper than the S20, which was last year's model. So, there's also that. All right, so now moving on to the screen itself. And I gotta say, this is kind of an interesting one, especially in the direction that Samsung went in. So it is, I'm pretty sure, as most of you may know or may not know, the Samsung Galaxy S21 Plus actually, the resolution of the screen is actually less than the resolution of last year's model. It's not as crispy and sharp, and that's because instead of using the Quad HD screen on the last year's model, you've actually now Samsung's kind of bumped it down to Full HD. And there's a reason for this. And I guess the first obvious reason would be, it saves battery life. And the second reason Samsung went down this route is, arguably the most important reason, and that is because of the refresh rate. Now, this was a problem in the previous generation, especially last year's model, where Samsung could only cap it to around 60 Hertz, even though the phone was capable of 120 Hertz, but it wasn't capable of 120 Hertz at that Quad HD resolution. And because of this, Samsung realized that most people wouldn't actually notice a difference in Quad HD versus Full HD. And as a result, they bumped down the resolution of the phone to Full HD just in order to make sure that you can get 120 Hertz refresh rate. And I think this is a pretty good trade-off. At 120 Hertz, everything feels so much more fluid. And I would honestly, personally, pick Full HD at 120 Hertz over Quad HD. So in terms of the resolution of this phone, it honestly is still a really good display. Make no mistake about it. And I think Samsung did make the right call in the end by going in this direction, because at 120 Hertz, everything's a lot more fluid, everything's a lot better. Going on into the actual specs of the phone, now the version I have has 256 gigabytes of storage, 8 gigabytes of RAM, and is running on the Snapdragon AAA processor. Now this is coupled with a 4800 mAh battery, and it honestly delivers really good performance for the money, I would say. And you know, of course it should, because you're paying a premium price for this and it needs to have good performance. So on that point, you know, Samsung kind of nails this out of the park. And speaking more about performance, now speaking of performance, let's get on to the actual UI itself and what that experience is like. Now Samsung UI has come a very long way. You know, I'm talking about 2010, 2011. This was in the era of Android Gingerbread. And from that point to now, Samsung has come a very long way. And the experience that I had is reflective of that. The UI is clean and simple. It's just easy to use, and it just gets straight to the point. You know, there's no unnecessary bloatware. It's just everything you need is right here. And you know, I can actually appreciate that. I would say in terms of OS, the kind of best OS that I've ever used is on a OnePlus. You know, that's probably the cleanest thing you can get next to Google's own OS. But yeah, it's just, it works. And I think it just works. Now the camera setup in the S21 Plus is a 64 megapixel main shooter, followed by 2 secondary 12 megapixel cameras. And the photo quality from these cameras are very decent, and I would expect nothing less. I would say this is easily in the top 4 smartphone cameras just of this year. And it's in that kind of, it's in that upper echelon, the iPhones and the Google Pixels, and I definitely think that Samsung definitely holds its ground. So this phone seemingly seems pretty damn good, right? Well, here's the thing. This phone isn't perfect, like anything in the world. So let's talk about some of the things that actually let this phone down. The first being expandable storage. And this is one of those things where you wouldn't expect Samsung to kind of make a decision like this. You know, they've always pushed expandable storage, and you know, they've always boasted about keeping the headphone jack and all that kind of stuff. But it seems that, you know, every smartphone manufacturer seemingly makes that decision and follows Apple kind of like sheep. As much as I hate to say it, but it's kind of the truth. And so in that way, and in that kind of tradition, Samsung's removed expandable storage, which really sucks. It really does suck. It's kind of just like the headphone jack leaving the phone. It's just one of those things where it does kind of let the phone down. And the second thing, arguably, that lets this phone down is the plastic bag. I talked about it a little bit, but yeah, the fact of the matter is that it does kind of, you know, keep the phone from having that fully premium feel. And for the price you're paying, you kind of expect a premium device. And while it does save weight and allow the phone to be, you know, slightly cheaper, it does kind of let the phone down. I'm not gonna lie. And it's just one of those things. I mean, if you're gonna use plastic, own it. Do something special with it, you know, do something cool like you did with the Samsung Galaxy S5. There's really nothing much else I can say there. Now moving on, I would say the third thing is the screen. While the screen may not be as sharp, it still gives you 120 Hertz of refresh, and I think that's perfectly acceptable. Now my final problem, arguably my biggest problem with this new S21 is the fact that there is no fast charging brick in the box anymore. And again, this is one of those things where I said, it seems like every smartphone manufacturer, no matter how many times they end up dissing Apple on Twitter or whatever, Samsung, it just seems like they end up following Apple anyway. And like I said, in that sense, they've lost the charging brick, and it honestly sucks. I mean, come on, this phone is capable of fast charging, and using an older brick, you're not utilizing the fast charging to its, you know, maximum capabilities, and that sucks. Unless you want to pay another 40-50 bucks for a fast charging brick, it really is one of those things where you have to just think, you know. And you know, just last year Samsung tweeted at Apple saying they were proud to be giving charging bricks, and all of a sudden they decide, oh, they want to take the eco-friendly route as well. It's just kind of mind-boggling. But yeah, those are the kind of ugly things about this phone, which it does kind of let this phone down. Alright, so my final verdict on this phone is that the screen's good, the camera's good, The software and UI is good. It's snappy, it's crisp, it works. And I think that it's just that there are a few things that let it down, but yeah, it is definitely worth paying for. Now, here's the thing though. Would I recommend this phone? Well, yes and no. Now, if you're in the market for a high-end flagship, but you're not too worried about the battery size, or even the screen size for that matter, you don't play too many games, you don't watch too many movies, then honestly, you can skip this phone and go straight for the Samsung Galaxy S21 and just save your money, and you just be on your way. But if you enjoy the extra screen real estate and you appreciate the larger battery, you play a lot of games, you watch a lot of movies, then this is definitely worth looking into. Like I said, this phone isn't for everyone. At 6.7 inches, the screen isn't exactly slightly large. This thing is huge. It's crazy. I don't have small hands, but even I have to struggle every now and then just to reach the top. So that's definitely something worth considering when you're purchasing this phone. So there you have it. That's been my review. My name is Prashil. Thank you so much for watching, guys and girls. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.